here on TV1. You're joining me, Devi Paldano. Now, taking a look at some local news, the curfew, which was imposed island-wide, was lifted at 4 a.m. today. A curfew will be in effect only between 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. daily in all districts of the island from today onwards. Now, this will be until further notice. Interprovincial bus services commence today except for Colombo and Gampaha districts.
Ministry of Passenger Transport Management stated that the Transport Commission and the Ceylon Transport Board should adhere to regulations given by the health sector in interprovincial bus services, which will commence today except for Colombo and Gampaha. Interprovincial buses plying from Kandy Road will be restricted to Niktambua, while interprovincial buses that ply on the Colombo 5 route will run only to Minuwangoda. The interprovincial buses that ply from Gaul Road will only run up to Panadura. Even though curfew was lifted in Colombo and Gampaha, a very few people were seen. With curfew being lifted after 66 days, an increase of vehicles that enter Colombo was seen. Our correspondent stated that there was a decline in the number of people who came to Colombo compared to before curfew was imposed. This was the situation along the Gaul Road this morning. A limited number of people were seen entering Colombo via the high-level road. Buses in Gampaha were in operation as usual today. Our correspondent stated that even though there were sufficient SLTB buses and private buses, a less number of people were seen. However, a large number of people were seen at the Gampaha railway station entering Colombo. The train which was supposed to arrive at the Gampaha railway station was delayed. Another train arrived at Colombo Fort at 7:25 this morning.
Buses travelling from Hambantota in the Southern Expressway will be stopped at Kottava.
Bus services from Gaul to Kadawatha and Kottava operating through the Southern Expressway commenced today since the 22nd of March. A large crowd was seen in Gaul at 5 a.m. in order to travel in the Southern Expressway. Conductors and drivers of the Mathura Colombo normal buses claim that it is unfair that bus routes starting in the Southern Expressway has to end in Kottava. They point out that their buses are given permission only to travel to Panadura.
Although 305 passengers have registered to travel to Colombo from the Polgahavela railway station, around 600 passengers were seen at the station. Activities at the Kurunegala main bus stand and the railway station have returned to normalcy. 333 passengers travelled to Colombo from the Kurunegala railway station this morning.
Now, although the curfew has been lifted island-wide, a decision regarding the reopening of schools has not been taken. Now, Minister of Education Dalas Alaha Peruma stated that a special meeting is to be held with the Ministry of Health today.
The fight against COVID-19 started on the 13th of March. It began after the students were kept at their homes. Schools will be reopened when the fight ends. It is the first step in keeping the children at home. The last step should be bringing them back to school. This is the decision that the Cabinet, including the President and the Prime Minister, took. We will hold a special discussions with the Health Ministry regarding this today. We have planned this in many stages. As a government, we have taken policy decisions to provide all relevant facilities to the students. A PCR test machine was given to the Sports Medicine Unit of the Sri Lanka Cricket Unit today. It was handed over under the auspices of Minister Dalas Alaha Peruma.
More than 3,000 people stranded in the Western Province were sent back to their respective villages today.
Police said the stranded people were sent to the Piliandala main bus stand at the Mount Lavinia railway station. On the 23rd of this month, around 1,500 people were sent back to their homes. More than 16,000 people have been sent back to the Western Province so far.
Acting Chief of Defence Staff, Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva stated that 113 Sri Lankans who repatriated from foreign countries tested positive for COVID-19. Among them, 90 people are from the Kuwait. The Army Commander expressed the following views.
As far as quarantining is concerned, we have 4,649 getting quarantined in 41 quarantine centers manned by Tri Services. And also, we have already released 10,795 who got quarantined in these Tri Services quarantine centers, and they were released. And today, we are planning to release 31, those who have finished quarantining.
Now, taking a look at one of the headline-making stories, the petitions filed challenging the decision taken by the National Elections Commission to hold the 2020 parliamentary elections on the 20th of June is being taken up at the Supreme Court for the 6th day today. Newsfirst Charlene Benedict reports.
Making submissions first today before the Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya, who is considering the petitions filed against the Gazette notification issued dissolving Parliament, as well as the Gazette notification calling for an election on the 20th of June. Making submissions, Deputy Solicitor General Demuni de Silva first spoke about the contested nominations that were submitted on the 17th, 18th and 19th of April. She went on to make submissions and said that as the petitioners have acquiesced in the process, they cannot go back on what they have done and challenge the nominations that they have submitted. And she also said that those who submitted nominations on the days that were not declared as public holidays have a legitimate expectations that their nominations will continue to be accepted. Next, she spoke about the dissolution of Parliament and how Parliament can be dissolved. She went on to elaborate on the powers of the President to dissolve Parliament, and in the process she pointed out that the proclamation issued by the President on the 2nd of March was issued according to the Constitution and according to the powers vested with the President. She then went on to highlight the legal effects of the dissolution of Parliament. She cited authorities for previous cases by the Supreme Court as well as Supreme Courts of other jurisdictions, including India and the United Kingdom, and said that Parliament ceases to exist and the office of all members of Parliament ceases to exist, and therefore Parliament cannot reconvene once it has been dissolved. Finally, Deputy Solicitor General Demuni de Silva, before court proceedings were adjourned at 11:30 for 15 minutes, making submissions, answered the question on if the President has the power to rescind a proclamation issued by him dissolving Parliament. She quoted provisions of the Constitution regarding provincial council elections and a proclamation issued by the President in that regard, and said that there are express provisions in the Constitution for the President to revoke a proclamation issued in that regard. She, however, went on to note that when it comes to a proclamation issued by the President dissolving Parliament, there are no express provisions in the Constitution for the President to revoke such a proclamation. She submitted that in the absence of procedure to revoke such a proclamation, it would be ultra vires on the part of the President and a violation of the Constitution if he were to revoke the proclamation as requested by opposition parties, leaders of opposition parties, in a letter that was addressed to the President previously.
Now, taking a look at your international news making headlines, the World Health Organization has temporarily suspended testing of the malaria drug hydroxychloroquine as a potential treatment for COVID-19 as a precautionary measure.
The WHO said the testing of the malaria drug hydroxychloroquine as a possible treatment for coronavirus has been halted because of safety fears. Trials in several countries are being temporarily suspended as a precaution. It comes after a recent medical study suggested the drug could increase the risk of patients dying from COVID-19. US President Donald Trump has promoted the anti-malarial drug despite warnings from public health officials that it could cause heart problems in COVID-19 patients. Trump also said he was taking the drug himself to ward off the virus, but said on Sunday that he was not taking it anymore.
The executive group has implemented a temporary pause of the hydroxychloroquine arm within the Solidarity trial while the safety data is reviewed by the Data Safety Monitoring Board. The other arms of the trial are continuing. This concern relates to the use of hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine in COVID-19.
So as such, it is not related to any problem. There is no problem at all right now within the Solidarity trial. There's no issue, there is no signal. We're just acting on an abundance of caution based on the recent results from other studies to ensure that we can continue safely with that arm of the trial.
Meanwhile, the WHO has warned of the risk of an immediate second peak as countries ease up on lockdowns, urging governments in the Europe and the US to step up surveillance, testing and tracking measures to keep the disease under control. More than 5.4 million cases of coronavirus has been confirmed around the world and nearly 345,000 people have died due to the virus. Meanwhile, more than 2.2 million people have recovered. Long queues and chaos greeted passengers at Indian airports yesterday as flights resumed 2 months after they were halted. Foreign media reported that almost 100 flights were cancelled, but many more took off. Maharashtra state, which has India's highest number of COVID-19 cases, said it would allow only 50 flights a day, leading to several cancellations. Saudi Arabia will lift its curfews across the country on the 21st of June, with only exceptions being in the holy city of Mecca, where shortened curfew hours will remain in place from 3 p.m. to 6 a.m. Saudi Arabian time. Mexico's capital registered 8,072 more deaths in the first 5 months this year than the average from the same period over the previous 4 years, suggesting a possible surge in fatalities to the coronavirus pandemic. Now shifting our attention to some local news, the human-elephant conflict in Sri Lanka is aggravating. People in Colombo may not understand the gravity of this issue. However, people living in rural areas continue to suffer. One such example is the people living in Galevala, Matale. The residents of Dandubantiruppa area in Galevala, Matale have been troubled by the elephants for a long period of time. Residents point out that it is the elephants in the Pahalukanda reserve that encroach into their village. Farmers in the area claim that this has posed a massive threat to their cultivation as well.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Weather Center to give you an update about the prevailing weather condition in the country. Now, due to the low atmospheric disturbance in the vicinity of Sri Lanka, the prevailing rainy weather condition in the country is expected to enhance, especially on the 26th, 27th, 28th and 29th of this month. Now, the Met Department predicts showers exceeding 100 millimeters, especially in the western, Sabaragamu central, northwestern and also in the Uva province. And the Met Department says that during this prevailing rainy weather condition, strong winds of up to 70 to 80 kilometers per hour can be expected. It also requests the naval and the fishing communities to be vigilant about the prevailing weather condition in the country.
Now taking a look at some more international news, thousands of people have taken to the streets in Ecuador to protest against the government's economic response to the coronavirus outbreak. Around 2,000 people demonstrated in the capital Quito, defying restrictions aimed at combating the virus. Last week, the president announced measures including the closure of some state-owned companies and cuts to public sector salaries. Ecuador has been one of the worst affected countries in South America. Protesters wearing face masks and carrying flags attended demonstrations organized by trade unions and social organizations following cuts announced by President Lenin Moreno. Around 37,000 cases have been confirmed and more than 2,000 people have died due to the virus. But that is a wrap of lunchtime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst team, I'm David Paldano. Take care.